Good morning, Miss Bell's Algebra 2 class. I want to read through the Solving Quadratics quiz for you. And these are going to be out of order. So you might want to jump around on your quiz while you're watching this so that you can be answering the same questions because they all are in different orders. So the first one, Takoya decides to solve x to the second equals negative 5x minus 6 by factoring. What factors will she find? And check all that apply. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to move this negative 5x over here, and so it's going to be plus 5x, and you're going to want to move this negative 6 or this minus 6 over here, so it's going to be plus 6. So in other words, it is going to look like this, okay? And then so you're going to want to think of what two numbers can you multiply to get 6, and when you add them together though, you get 5. Okay, so those are going to be your factors, and you're going to be checking all that apply, and this one does allow you to check more than one. Which of the following represents the solutions to this equation? And my advice to you is to plug this one into Desmos and then see where it crosses the x-axis. So in other words, go to Desmos, and just go ahead and plug that problem in, and you will be able to see 3x squared plus 4x and minus the 20. And those, if you click on those, once you get it all in there, when you click on those where it crosses the x-axis, those gray points, it will give you the coordinates you need for that problem there. Moving on, select the solutions for the quadratic, and what you're going to do is you're going to add 5 to both sides. It is going to end up looking like that, and so you are going to figure out, and I'm kind of leading you on here, what you're going to multiply in order to get 24, and when you add them together you get negative 11. You can kind of see where I started to do that, but then you have to set both of those to 0 and solve for x. What is the first step in solving this equation? What are you going to do first? That should probably have been number 1, because I forgot to do that a few times. Solve by factoring. And remember, once you factor this out, set those to 0 and solve for x. That's one thing that I forgot to do. Solve for x, and so you're just going to divide 48 by 3, and you're going to get x squared equals whatever 48 divided by 3 is. It is going to be a perfect square, and that should tell you, once you take the square root of that, what your answer is. True or false, the solution, root, x-intercept, and 0 of a problem are all the same thing. And remember, you did an assignment where you were doing these steps, solving quadratics using the calculator and graphing, where we looked for the roots, called them roots there. We looked for the x-intercepts, they called them x-intercepts there. We looked for the zeros, they called them zeros there. And we looked for solutions, and they called them solutions there. So that should give you some idea about how to answer that one. How many zeros does this parabola have? In other words, how many times does it cross the x-axis? simplify the square root of 24. So you're going to break down 24 into two numbers. One's going to be a perfect square, and the other is going to be, what you multiply that number by. So here's the perfect square list. You should have that in your notes, all the way up to 225. So if you want to pause that on there. So it's going to be, one of these numbers down here times another number would give you, your 24. And then you could take the square root of that perfect square, bring it out of the brackets, and what's left in, or out of the square root, and then what's left in the square root is just, what's left over. What are the solutions to this graph? So you'll have to look just real careful, where it crosses the x-axis, where you think that is. This one, same thing. You're going to take the square root of x squared, take the square root of 8. 8, you're going to break up into two numbers. One you can bring out of the square root bracket because it is a perfect square. Once again, looking at the perfect squares, it's going to be one of these numbers down here. You could bring that out, the square root of it, and then what's left over stays under the square root symbol. What are the two solutions to this quadratic? That is already factored for you. So just set this to 0 and set this to 0 and solve for x each time. And what should you do first involving this equation? Taking a look at this equation, what would be the first thing? Would it be get in factored form? Write a1, b, 6c, negative 13. Make it equal 0 by subtracting 3 from each side. Should say make it equal to 0 by subtracting 3 from each side. And type it all in a calculator. Okay, hopefully this was helpful to you, and go look on this quiz.